Welcome back to another episode of the Matt Chandler Show. I'm your host, Logan Hall, and with me is Hazard's head football coach, Matt Chandler. Coach, last week you went down to Whitley County, won 42-7. Had another stellar performance out of the young quarterback, William Shoptaw. Went 19 for 23 for 284 yards and 2 touchdowns. What can you say about your young quarterback and what he's done so far this year?
He's just been super accurate. I think that's the biggest thing. He's completing over 80% of his passes. He's been a great leader on the field. He never looks rattled. He's just calm, collected, and that carries over to everybody else on the defense. Because we brought back a lot of guys, but we do have some guys out there that are either transfer guys who haven't played with the rest of those guys, or are guys that didn't play as much last year, at least in the positions that they're in now. So really, not just the numbers, but his leadership has been the biggest thing offensively.
Yep. Now, you had two guys that did a lot of things on both ends of the field, or both sides of the ball last week. Gavin Johnson and Connor Holbrook. Gavin had 119 yards and 6 receptions for 2 touchdowns and an interception on the defensive end. Connor Holbrook, 2 rushes for 45 yards with 2 touchdowns and 3 receptions for 43 yards. And on the defensive end, he also had 13 tackles, 8 of them were solo and 3 of them were sacks. What can you say about great athletes like that can play on both sides of the ball?
Well, it makes us really difficult to defend, and it makes us really difficult to play against when you look at defensively, because there's just so many weapons. You can't say, well, we're going to take this away or we're going to take this guy away, because we're just going to throw it to somebody else or hand it off to, one of our running backs. And Connor was really impressive. We made it a point last week that we wanted to get him more involved early in the game on offense to get him into a rhythm. And, those 13 tackles are huge. There were multiple tackles where the Parker kid gets loose. And the week before against Knox, those were 65-yard touchdowns. And it's a 15-yard gain because Connor runs him down, and then we get the stop. So within those numbers are some really, really significant plays.
Yeah. Now, just want to give a quick shout out. Jackson Deaton led you in tackles last week. 17 and 6 solos. Is he linebacker for you?
Yeah. And he's just such a smart football player. He's so invested in the game plan and knowing what's coming week to week. He lives in the scouting report and is always watching film. And that makes his job a lot easier, on top of just being a really good athlete and a really good football player.
Yeah. Now, let's talk about the big dogs for a second. You O linemen, you D linemen.
Yep.
They don't get a lot of love because they don't have a lot of things that they do pop up in the stat sheets. But you had one last week that did. The man, the myth, the bear, Chris Park. Now, he went for 11 tackles, 8 of them were solos, and 1 forced fumble. And I've heard you sicked him on the running back, and that guy couldn't breathe all week or all night last week.
Yeah, he did not want to be tackled anymore by Chris Park. You play an option team, you've got option responsibilities, and Chris had the dive. So, when they would attempt to hand the ball off to 21, that's who Chris had. And, there were multiple times where Chris would tackle Parker and he wouldn't have the ball, which is his job. He was so focused on doing his job. And then had a great night on offense. We had multiple guys. Davin Nuspickle was our offensive lineman of the week, made his first career varsity start and played great, and then still played some reps on the defensive line too. That O-line, man, as a unit is just, they're playing so well right now. We're at 56 pass attempts without a sack given that. So we're trying to run that number as high as we can go, because if you give Murph as much time as he's had to throw the ball, it's going to be bad news for anybody defensively.
Now, you go to Prestonsburg this week, at Prestonsburg, another strong running team. They've got 3 guys that can hurt you on the ground and a quarterback that makes you respect the pass game. Against a team that averages near 56 points per game, what's the key for you all to slowing them down?
I think a lot like last week, I mentioned Connor making plays down the field. We got to pursue the football, because they're going to make plays. They're going to break stuff. We've got to go run it down and make them keep snapping the football. And we've got to make them drive the football. We can't let it turn into big play after big play that goes for a score. That was kind of our motto last week defensively, was we should got to make them work. And that's something they've not had to do in the first 2 games. Betsy Lane was a ton of big plays. Shelby Valley was a bunch of big plays. So we've got to really stress tackling the football, pursuing the football, and making them keep snapping.
Yeah. And it's always nice knowing you have a guy that saved 3 touchdowns
Yeah.
last week.
Yep.
Ready to go again this week.
Yep. And we'll maybe need to do it again.
Yeah. You're 2-0 now, sitting number 5 on the Kentucky High Football Poll.
Yep.
Looking to go 3-0 in a place where it's hard to win. What's going to be key to offense and defense on securing wins?
Offensively, just got to keep playing well up front. I think we've got an advantage there. We've got to continue to make the simple plays.
Yeah.
We've not had an issue with drops. We've not had an issue with, blown assignments. We got to keep doing that. Get the ball to the perimeter and allow our playmakers to go make plays. And then, like I said, defensively, we've got a good plan. We've got a really sound plan. And we just got to go tackle the football and make it a 4-quarter game where they've got to work for everything they get.
Yeah. Now, been raining all week. Should have rain tonight.
It's destroyed our routine this week. Absolutely.
So have y'all been preparing, or does the game plan change any, or have y'all just been preparing for the weather? Or?
We do some. We try to keep enough stuff, especially offensively, in the game plan.
Yeah.
If it's not conducive to throwing the football.
Yeah.
As long as conditions are okay, we'll continue to do what we do. I've always personally, offensively, been a big proponent of as long as you've got a dry surface to run on, short to intermediate passing game is still really good and sometimes better in the rain because it's harder to get a pass rush. It's harder for DBs and linebackers to come downhill and make tackles in space. So wind or, severe weather that causes a delay could be an issue, but other than that, I think we'll be good.
Now, it's time for student questions.
Student question.
We have a few students in here with us today. And I think Tucker Johnson's got the first one.
After a big win, do you have any costing celebration with your house?
We usually have a speaker with us, and it's usually just playing music and trying to get on the bus and get back home because everybody usually wore out. Home games are a little bit different. We like to hang out for a while at the field at home games. Sometimes a few guys will linger around and we'll watch sports overtime in the back on the TV when it's a home game and catch them out in top 10 and all that stuff. So,
Matt. They're not going to ask you, Coach, but I did talk to some of them earlier. They wanted to know what you would do if you won the power.
oh gosh. Well, the first thing I would do is, I don't know. That's a good question. They don't want me to win the Powerball. You probably won't see me anymore. You'll get a postcard from like the Bahamas or something because I'd probably go buy an island in the place where we vacationed in. And then, I'd send you all a postcard every once in a while.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Coach, and thank you all for watching. Come down to Prestonsburg and support the Dogs. And if you can't make it down there, WSGS, WYMT, and D&D Sports will be streaming live, so you can tune in there and watch it there. This has been another episode of The Matt Chandler Show.